All right. Well, welcome everybody to this LinkedIn Live where Dana, Herra, and myself, Justin Vajko, we're talking about the only repurposing framework you'll ever need. And we're going to be talking about content. And this is obviously in the context of content marketing. And I'll introduce myself first. So I'm Justin. I run a remote video agency, which is focused on enabling true thought leaders to put themselves out there and stop being invisible on LinkedIn specifically. And Dana, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dana. I help small businesses and solopreneurs plan marketing strategies that they can actually stick with consistently. And I create content on their behalf. I ghostwrite articles, LinkedIn posts, emails under the byline of my clients.
Yeah, I love that that emphasis. And that's what we're talking about, is trying to make something really, really tangible for you guys here today. This is not theory. This is actual application. You can walk away with, we're talking about some mistakes. We'll each talk through a mistake we see in content repurposing and then an underrated tactic. So Dana, do you want to kind of unpack why we're here and dive into that first?
Yeah. So one of the things that that we see, particularly with small businesses, solopreneurs that are trying to do content creation, is they burn themselves out trying to create something new and reinvent the wheel all the time. And one, you don't have to do that. And two, you really shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to create more and more content. But you need a scalable model for doing it. You can't just plug it into ChatGPT and have it spit out a bunch of stuff. People have been trying that. And now we can all recognize it because it's garbage.
Yep.
So we want you to be you and be creating things, but not have to work so hard to do it.
Yeah.
And not have to spend so much time and effort on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point, it's not just, oh, AI solves the repurposing problem. It does not. It really starts before that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, it starts before you start creating content. Right. And it goes through, if you can get into a good framework, then you end up at this sort of virtuous cycle and it just feeds itself. You just got to get started right and get the right structure in place. Love and then that. I forgot to mention, I just want to throw out there as a side note on this, it's not just about creating more. It's also about keeping your messaging consistent, because when you're trying to reinvent the wheel and build from scratch every single time, you will run out of things to talk about.
Yeah.
And then people start straying from their message and they confuse their audience or they dilute their message.
That's my pain point. Yeah.
Repurposing not only helps you to work less, but it keeps things together and focused and more targeted, which just is better marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really good points. Yeah. And the stats should support it. I posted about this yesterday. 48% of marketers want more content, according to Demand Sage. That's basically 1 in every 2 marketers want more content. But 45% don't have a scalable model for doing content, according to Neil Patel. So this is very much something that every content marketer has run across at some point and is dealing with. At least half of us are dealing with. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. But we are going to talk about some of the common mistakes we see. And I'm coming at it from the video angle specifically. You know, like, why am I here talking about repurposing? Because I think I guess I'll give it away. I think that's the underrated tactic. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's dive right in. Pardon my voice. I'm getting over a cold. Dana, let's dive right in. What is a common mistake you see in content repurposing over and over and over again?
So a big mistake that I see is that people have a very narrow definition in their mind of what repurposing means. I say content repurposing and they think, oh, so that means that I have to write a big long blog post and then break it up into little chunks for social media, or I have to record a long video and break it into little chunks for social media.
Yeah.
And yes, you can do that and you should do that. Great. But that's not all you can do. You're not like, okay, check, repurposing, done. Yeah. There's other ways that you can repurpose. I think of it like I think of things like toys. If you're thinking like Lego content, right? So where you have your big thing and you're breaking it up into smaller pieces. Okay. But now you can also take your smaller pieces and stick them together. If you're doing shorts for video, you can make a highlight reel and create a longer video that's all about the same topic. You can take your social media posts and do a roundup. Your blog posts can become chapters of an ebook, right? You can take little pieces and stretch them out the same way that you can take big pieces and break them down. You can change the format, take it apart and then build something new. Write your blog post and then make a video on the same topic. Take your video and make an infographic, right? Those are all repurposing things as well. And you can reshare your old pieces. That is so underdone. People are like, oh, well, I posted it. It's done. That's okay. What's your reach been like on LinkedIn lately, Justin? Like how much of your audience is seeing your posts?
Right.
How many people would notice if 3 months from now you take a post that you really liked and just shared it again?
Right. Yeah, it's totally true. It's totally true. Part of it, I think, can you speak to this? Part of it is some of us who are more creative, we go, no, but I want to do something new every time. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that creator urge, and I get it. But I also, like, you want to create something new every time. How much time do you want to spend creating your content? Do you have other things to do? Probably. And we all know that we're supposed to be spending as much time distributing as creating. So what can you do with all that extra time?
There you go. Touché.
I think the other creator dilemma is because we're so close to it, right? It's our baby. It's our idea, our thoughts, our words, our voice. So it's a really big, important thing in our lives. And that's, again, where we forget that most of your audience isn't going to see that one piece of content. So if you post the same one or talk about the same thing a couple months later, people aren't going to notice and be like, oh, you wrote about that 6 weeks ago. They're not going to do that. If they are, that means that they're stalking you. And that's either good or bad. That's a whole different conversation.
That's never happened to me. But in many ways, I've heard this said, I reached this point about a year ago when I started getting sick of writing about the same thing. And I started posting about it. I was like, I forget what I said, but got feedback from my community, other LinkedIn creators, and said, yep, that means you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You have to be, in many ways, content marketing it is a job. It is creative to a certain point, but it's a lot of logistical checklists type stuff to really be good at it. Because if you're sick of talking about something, for example, it means you're talking about the same thing over and over, which is good for your audience. Maybe you're not enjoying it, but there is a balance, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. I think there's what I'm going to touch on here with my repurposing tip is going to touch on that, but.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it's important too to remember that you might spend an hour or more creating your piece of content. That's just something small, like a social media post, and it's taking your audience 30 seconds to consume it. So even though it's taken up a lot of space in your brain, it's not taking up that much space in their brain. They are not the ones getting sick of it.
That's right. That's right. And that's a really good point. So that's the mistake. You want to restate the mistake there from the top?
Yeah. So the mistake is limiting your idea of what repurposing means. It's thinking that repurposing is just breaking something big down into smaller chunks, when repurposing is actually any way that you can put the same content back out into the world in a different format, on a different channel, in a different way.
Yeah. Giving yourself liberty to think beyond just reusing parts of it into smaller one piece into one big piece into smaller pieces.
Right. I've heard people say, well, I can't do repurposing because I don't have a blog. Like that's okay. If you're creating anything, you can repurpose it.
That's right. I like the collection method. That was, I was doing a little bit of thinking through this in preparation for today. And the collection method, I think, is super underrated, which is what you've described, is taking the little pieces, turn into something bigger. You could do it with anything, not just little pieces, big pieces, but yeah.
It's interesting because it's been around for like way before internet content, right? Like go back to watching sitcoms back in like the 80s, and you could tell like when all the writers are going to go on vacation, because there would be like the episode where they're all just going to recall their favorite memories and moments, and it's
that's right. Yeah, that's the bottle episode is what they call that. It's the
Yep.
episode that nobody is like, what is the point of this episode? There's this debate in TV shows about, is this the bottle? I used to watch Community back when that was a thing. I love Community. And there's always, every season had a bottle episode, but there was debate about which one was which. And it was always the one with the least amount of effort, often
Yep.
with a whatever that's called, looking back and
Yep.
the wobbly screen, and then it cuts back to a previous season or whatever. That's a good example. Yeah. So the mistake I'll share is not starting, that I've seen a lot, and this is in the context, especially of video marketing, video thought leadership, is not starting with the end in mind. So similar to yours, you have this giant piece of content, and then now what? And one of the things I've talked about, I do a lot of talks on video thought leadership. Video is one of those poor little pieces of content that gets kicked to the curb over and over and over again, because once you're done putting together your cornerstone pieces of content, as I've heard some people call it, you have very little time left. You're distribution mode, and you're like, video, it's too big of a lift. Let's not work on it. But when you start with the end in mind and you think, okay, the context, where are people going to learn about this? Where are they going to learn about it? Well, in many ways, if you want visibility on your blog post or your big piece of content or your webinar, whatever it is, the end in mind where people are going to end up seeing it is not the blog and it's not the webinar. It's going to be in their feeds on LinkedIn, maybe on TikTok, maybe on Instagram and other places like that. So this really is starting with the in mind, meaning start with distribution in mind. What will this look like when our audience actually sees it? We can't assume people are going to want to read the blog just because we wrote a blog. I mean, it's the IKEA effect, right? If I make something and I poured all this time into it, I think it has a ton of value, but then I go out there and it's got value, therefore it will be read. And, well, that's not how the world works. I come across fantastic content all the time that has 0 views, and I'm like, they forgot to distribute it. And so the end in mind is think through the idea, the mistake is think through the distribution channels you want this to exist, and then work your way backwards. If this is true, then what do we need? And if we need this, then what do we need to do ahead of time when we're putting together the piece of content? So for example, in the world of video, and this will lead right into the next point, of which is the underrated tactic, is if you're struggling to go after video, the way I put it is like, sometimes we'll see teams like, video's been our back burner forever. Founders have talked to marketing team, video's been there forever, but it's never touched on. And that's because it feels like this, you did all the work, it's done, you're stretching, you're like, video, we don't have time, we don't have effort, time, or whatever to do that. But if you start with video in your content, so if your cornerstone pieces actually start with the source as video, you actually give yourself a fighting chance. So what does that mean? Well, in my case, I've seen this work really well. 2 different examples. One is actually record your calls, record your sales calls, record your webinars like this one, and record any kind of call that you're in where you're sharing information. This happens all the time. I see founders be geniuses on a Zoom call, one-on-one. They're just like sharing information. It happens to me too. I'm not calling myself a genius, but you get on a networking call or a sales call or whatever, and then you're talking, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have been recording. That's what I think now. But it's just one of those little switches we can all flip now, whether it's Zoom or anything. Just flip the switch, hit record. And then the good news is you can actually use that, not just for the source for your blog post or whatever, right? I call it the trickle down effect. I'm not talking about economics here. I'm talking about content marketing. If you start with the video, it makes everything else easier, because now you have the clips you want to use. You could use longer bits of it, and you can then solve that end in mind problem I brought up, that mistake of, okay, we've got a clip literally of Joe talking about this in a sales call. It's in the blog post. Let's go publish that clip or that podcast clip or whatever of that video asset that was recorded. And then let's reference the blog post that we created around this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an underrated tactic,
cool.
I see.
Absolutely. And it's such efficient use of time, right? Actually, I have a call coming up later this month with a founder. We're doing a huge thought leadership article. And we're actually doing the interview through a platform like this, because we're going to record it. I'm going to not be like in the screen or way down so that I'm easily cropped out. So we're just going to record, like I would be recording the interview anyway.
Yeah.
I need that to write the post, but she's also going to have video of herself just speaking brilliantly because the performance pressure is off.
That's right.
She's not trying to perform. She's just talking about the thing that she knows about. So yeah, it's fantastic if you can pull that off.
That's absolutely right. Now there are some tips there, I'll say, for pulling it off in a way that does make your subject matter expert more good looking on video. I'll just say it that way. So there's different framing tips. Excuse me. There's things you need to know about, like, hey, just note this, this lighting thing, this framing thing. And if folks are interested, I do have a Get Leads with Video training, and I talk about some of those basics in that. It's free on my website if folks are interested. But that'll go a long way, because you don't want to put too much pressure on the front end, because then it does turn into a performance. We've seen that with our clients. That's because what you just described is what we do for our clients, but for the purpose of short form video production, not blog posts or anything like that. But yeah, if you start tinkering too much with and drawing attention to the video production world, it can be stressful. So there are a few things you can do that don't draw attention to that. Some tips you can give your team, if your team is recording things, or if you're recording, in order to kind of set yourself up for success, and not, because what happens is you get somebody who's recording and that's just the top of their head like that. Obviously you can't use that. So there's basics like that you can follow. If someone's interested, you can DM me or put it in the comments. I'll give you the link. I just thought of that, if that's helpful. What is your underrated thing?
Real quick. I just want to point out too, because that comes back to keeping the end in mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've seen, or we put all this effort, energy into this video, and it's like, okay, well, let's post it on this platform. Oh, well, it's not formatted for that. Or, oh, well, we didn't add captions. Or, it'd be really great if we could put a bar across the bottom with our name. We should have done that.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're going back and trying to patch things after the fact. That would have been so much easier if you just thought it through from the beginning.
That's you see that all the time in video editing. Can you use this footage? I got a month ago, my coach, he's one of our clients. Can you use this footage? And the footage was worse than 720p. It's like this really, really grainy. It's like, man, no, we can't. I'm sorry. And it's just a learning moment of like what that looks like, honestly. And the best way to do that, I tell folks, is watch what good video looks like, and then you'll start to know how to aim for that in the end. Yeah, I'll put it in. I'll put the link there. I see a comment from LinkedIn. I'll put that link in the chat here. So Dana, what is your underrated repurposing thing?
Mine is reframing. I often refer to this as repurposing concept, not just content.
I love this one. We were talking about
because sometimes people will be like, okay, well, we posted about that thing last month, so that's done. Well, just topics are never done. You can approach it from a different angle, from a different side. And I was telling you earlier, this goes back when I was a journalist, and newspapers have to cover. There's some stories that you have to cover every year, like the first day back to school. You have to cover it. People expect it.
Yeah.
But like, nobody wants to write the same story every year. And honestly, nobody wants to read the exact same story every year. So we would have these meetings. We'd be like, okay, we'd write it up on the whiteboard, back to school. And that goes in the middle. And then we do like a web around it. Okay, who's affected by back to school? Students, teachers, parents, crossing guards. Here's all the people. All right, well, how are they affected? What are they thinking about? What's different for them? What questions do they have? I made myself some notes here about just underrated ways to reframe, because it might sound kind of conceptual if you've never tried to do it before.
Yeah.
But let's just say, I'm going to throw out an example. Let's just say that you're a garden supply company, right? And so you're going to do content about planting bulbs in the fall. So, all right, we did something about planting bulbs in the fall. All right, well, you can do how to plant bulbs in the fall. Why should you plant your bulbs in the fall? What are the steps? And then you can do a new piece of content about each one of those steps that breaks those steps down further. Do a case study of what it looks like when you plant bulbs in the fall. Do a deep dive into some step of the how or the why, like soil or fertilizer or whatever. What are the best tools to plant bulbs in the fall? Right? There's tons of content you can get out of that one topic.
Yeah.
you just got to take a step back and think, what are all the questions somebody might have about this?
Yeah. Well, that creative light, we were talking about this right beforehand. It's like, what's your, because we didn't, we were talking about what, closing the loop on what we're going to talk about. And that came up. And I thought this was incredibly interesting because, excuse me, something I've been learning about is like the not, what is this not angle, or how to not angle. And you can take that in the cheeky way, like the tongue in cheek way, like, oh, everything I would do if I were trying to lose customers, right? And then you'd have a list, right? That's a common one I think of right away because my brain goes like that. But there's a lot of cool not angles, and it just happens to be I've seen a few of those in my feed in the last 2 days, and I'm like, oh man, I really should be thinking about that. That's a framing thing, right? It's just talking about the same thing, but in a different lens, and it's really helpful hearing about how you did that as a journalist because. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. It's like, that's from, okay, what would a crossing guard, for example, I don't know why it stood out to me. What would a crossing guard think about back to school? Are there fears? Are there frustrations? Do those tap into a bigger picture? It reminds me, and I was never a journalist, but I know in journalism, you're always looking, what's the story, right? Is there something here? And so that's kind of cool to think about that. And it can be tough when you're in your own shoes doing that. It's why it's often good to have, like, that's why we do this, is like give people fresh inspiration. I'm inspired just talking to you, Dana, with my own content.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why even if you're a solopreneur, you need to get out and talk to your customers, and then you need to talk to other solopreneurs, other creators, and just have people to bounce ideas off of. Like, that is, I don't miss working like in a big corporate office, but I do sometimes miss just having people to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Like you need somebody where you can go be like, hey, am I crazy? Or is this a good idea?
That's right.
Is this stupid? Or does this make any sense? Am I even being clear? And that is something that, I don't condone using AI to generate content, but brainstorming topics, it can be great for. Like, I mean, you can ask it, who are all of the groups of people that are affected by the first day back to school? Like, what questions might crossing guards have, or what pain points might crossing guards experience? Like, brainstorming is great. Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a really good point. So we did promise the only framework you'll ever need.
Yes.
We put some thought and effort, not any tears, not quite that much effort, but we put some thought and effort into this.
Caffeine.
And wanted to share it with you guys and talk through it here a little bit. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Add this. Let me see if this works. I've used Riverside most of my life. StreamYard is one of those fun things that, there it is. So we're going to share this guy. All right. If you can see that. Dana, do you want to, I mean, I'll just kick us off here, kind of talking through the thing, and then chime in here. So this is not the coffee content repurposing framework, although it might look like that. It's the content repurposing framework. And the biggest thing about this that I want to point out is that mistake thing I talked about, is like not starting with the end in mind. It literally starts with consider the end context. So this is kind of your reminder. So you can see all the different coffee cups, and you got, I don't know how you guys make your coffee. In our home, we made our coffee with, all sorts of ways, French press, and this is a pour over method. So in pour over, you have to pick an individual coffee cup before you put it in. You can't just make one giant batch and then pour it into the coffee cups, which is another way of doing content. And I would say that's probably the more traditional way. It's like, you got this giant pot. Now let's fill up all the cups. Ah, crap. We can't fill that cup. This is where the analogy breaks down, because of course you fill it. But the point is like, oh, we can't do video now, right? I'm a video guy. Oh, we can't do video because we don't have a video. It's too much effort. That's a cup. That's one of the, right? You got channels. Consider all your channels are cups. And so consider the end context. Start with the end in mind. Where is this going to show up for our audience? Because if you're just posting it to the blog, but you don't have a distribution plan, and your distribution plan isn't actually everywhere where your clients need to be, or in a way that is sustainable for you, it doesn't really make sense. So this is the biggest takeaway here, is starting with the coffee cups in mind. Where are all the channels you want this to exist? And more, of course, that's video. Obviously I'm biased, but it's the truth. Like every year I read these studies, guys. Like every year my content marketers ask, what are you going to do more of next year? Video. Like it's the thing. We know video is important in all ways, shapes, and forms, and thought leadership video is part of that. So consider the end context.
Yeah,
Anything you want
absolutely.
to add
Again,
there, Dana?
sometimes sometimes see, I'm gonna carry the cup. You got me on the cup analogy now.
Yeah.
You need to leave room for cream in that one.
I love
Like,
that.
oh no, like this party's happening at 6 p.m. We need some decaf, right? Like, you need to consider all of the things.
I love that. Yeah. So consider all the different elements. Yeah, that go into, and then of course you got your source, the coffee grounds, and the coffee grounds. We'll talk about that here this next, the source, and then the filters. Obviously we use AI a lot. We often think, oh, repurposing is done because I have a good filter, right? That's my AI now. I got, like we talked about that earlier, got this big old piece of content. Let me filter it through and it'll take care of the repurposing. But that's missing. If you're leaning on AI for that much filtering, you're really going to end up missing opportunities. Like we talked about, you're missing a coffee cup here and there. And the analogy does break down quickly here, but so bear with me, guys. But the idea is that, AI cannot be the only thing that is filtering with AI is not the only part of repurposing. It's thinking strategically with the end in mind. And then of course, publishing, which is the delicious coffee in the coffee mug. So a couple examples here. We consider the end context. Who is this for? Where will they see it? What will it take them to take the next step? Because content marketing isn't just about they see it one time and they buy, right? We all know that. It's about what's the next step. Do you want them to watch the video and subscribe? So they watch more videos so that from there, then they download your resource. Or do you want them to download your resource? You want to get them off LinkedIn as soon as possible. That's one I advocate for. I'm a LinkedIn guy, but I would advocate getting your buyers off LinkedIn as soon as possible with your own assets, lead magnets, things like that, which tie into an email, things like that. So this is for anybody here today that's here. We'll give this to you with the ideas here. Consider the end context, source, what will repurpose. We talked about collecting earlier. That's one of my favorite new things to think about, collecting all your small ones into a big one, creating from scratch or capturing. That's the one we use. That's what our clients use, capturing what they're already doing, turning it into clips. Collect, create, capture, and then filter. How do we make this useful? Condense, expand, reimagine, reframe. That's what you talked about today. And then publishing, of course, and then revisiting and recycling. Do you want to speak to that last one?
Yeah. So that comes back to, as I was saying, going ahead and resharing things that you've shared in the past. So, optimize for your seasonal changes, relevance, the channel. So, we have kind of an example on the right of some things from my business. I like to look through my metrics after every 6 months and like, okay, what was performing really well? I'm not even talking about reimagining it or reframing it. We're just gonna, especially if it's something like social media, or I wouldn't have to create it, repost a blog post, but a Substack, send out a Substack again, send out the same email again, send out the same LinkedIn post again. And maybe like if it's something seasonal, it's like, okay, well, can we just refresh this?
Yeah, add some stats.
Yeah,
see if the market's changed.
What's changed since last year? The bulk of this is good. Let's just freshen up a little bit and send it out again.
Yeah, some of the best performing posts I've seen have that best practice used with them. We've all been to blogs where it's like the original article was posted 5 years ago, but it's been refreshed this date, with new information. It's a good practice. I'm really bad at looking back and doing this personally. And the recycling thing I'm really bad at. This goes back to what I said earlier. Like, what? Give me the new thing, right?
Right.
Give me but this would help me avoid a lot of pressure I do feel weekly. If I embrace this and I've got good at this and embrace the looking back discipline of doing that, it'd take a lot of pressure off of me weekly from what do I do, from scratch next week, it's because my main thing is LinkedIn in short form. But yeah.
I think a lot of us do, especially as creators, we're always creating, right? So you're always looking forward, and it's hard to remember to look back from time to time and be like, hey, that was actually really good. And if you're doing things like updating stats and refreshing like blog posts, it's going to be good for your SEO. Also, it's so much better to have something that's been refreshed and has new stats than something that, Google's like, oh, yep, that's still sitting there. That was published 5 years ago.
Right. Yeah. Start to degrade in performance and over time. Yeah. Good stuff. Well, we're at the end of our time. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If you want this resource, it's only available for you if you were here live today. So DM me and Dana if you want this resource. We'll share it with you in the DMs, because if I pop it in here in the link as a link, everyone will get it. So if you're here today live, thank you for being here. We're really grateful that you spent some 30 minutes with us.
Yeah.
And we'll send you this resource if you think it'd be helpful for you for thinking strategically about how to repurpose your own content. Any other last thoughts, Dana?
No, I think this has been great. I appreciate the people who came. Hope you got some use out of it. If you have questions, please reach out to either one of us through our websites, which are on the screen right now, or through our LinkedIn. We're happy to talk to anybody about this stuff. This is really important.
This is our jam as marketers, mine specifically with video and Dana's with the strategic lens of how do we look at this from a reporter's perspective, which I really appreciate. Thank you, Dana, for teaching me some stuff today.
Absolutely.
And thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks, everyone.